Hello everyone, welcome to the Bondora live Q&A. My name is Matt Clanahan. I lead the investor product here at Bondora, and I'm joined with Pärtel Tomberg, who's our CEO.
Hello.
So today we're going to discuss through all the questions that you submitted. Thank you to everyone who did that. We tried to summarize them. We had hundreds of responses, so we tried to summarize them into the best we can, and we're going to go through them step by step. So feel free to comment, let us know what you think, and we'll go along the way. So, Pärtel, we'll start with the first one. One of the main questions that people asked, with everything that's going on with the coronavirus at the moment, how can Bondora survive this crisis? How are we built to survive this crisis?
It's a very good question, and I understand a lot of our customers want to know more about it. So first, it's good to remind ourselves that we've been operating for over 12 years. We started in the middle of the financial crisis of 2008. And the experience we've had since then, going through the 2008 financial crisis and recessions in Estonia, Finland, and Spain, have forced us to build a business that can sustain good times and bad. The key component there is that we've tried as a company to make our business model so that the revenues we generate from new originations or other variable income are matched with variable costs.
Right.
So what that means is that when we're doing more business volume, we're also having higher costs. We're doing more marketing. We have other processing costs. But most of these are external third-party costs that go in line with the business volume. So when we need to scale back our business volumes, like at the current level where in terms of originations, we're going to likely be at the level of early 2018, also our cost base goes down immediately. And then we're talking about variable costs. So predominantly it's marketing, it's credit data we buy, it's various sort of online payment services we use, etc., etc. With businesses going up, the costs go up. With business going down, the costs go down as well.
Okay. So what you're saying is essentially, if we're not trying to originate as much over the next few months, then our costs for things like online marketing, TV advertising, everything like this also drops as well.
Yes. Okay. So what this means is that financially, yes, Bondora is going to have lower revenues. So in 2019, we had 100% revenue growth. Depending on how long the current market situation will last, our revenue growth for this year will be maybe 20 to 40% only. Mm-hmm. So yes, revenues will be lower. However, given we're able to also automatically cut a lot of the costs, our profitability is not hurt. Mm-hmm. To be specific, the level of the profit will be lower, and even the profit margin may be a bit lower, but we continue to be operating break-even level.
Okay, so I mean, we've had the profit since 2017. Do you think we will end 2020, Bondora will end 2020 as a profitable year as well?
Yes, we're certain. I think it's good that you pointed out our sort of 3 years of previous profits. We've been operating since 2008, and for the last 3 years we've been profitable. We've built up very strong cash reserves, and we're well capitalized with very strong investors. Mm-hmm. So even without us being able to fluctuate like we are able to do, we've already built up very strong reserves. But we're extremely confident that we don't have to go into the reserves, and the automatic stabilization in our business model allows us to remain profitable even at this time. And I think it's very sort of important to stress that we don't have to make any layoffs. We don't have to cut back on our services. We don't have to cut back on our people to be able to sustain the profit.
Yeah, because I guess it's the first thing that investors tend to think, lower originations, crisis around the world, can we make a profit? Can we sustain the business? I guess it's a natural thought. Something you touched on then, which was a common question from investors as well. How do we have to lay off any employees? Have we done it already? Is it planned? The reasoning behind it.
Sure. So we have not laid off any employees based on the coronavirus crisis, and we're not planning to do any changes. We've stress tested our business model and finances for this year, and we're confident that we can continue operating with the team. We're able to build that team further, to invest in product, to invest in support, and invest in the overall sort of service development. And I think it's extremely important because what we've tried to do over the years is to grow at a reasonable level, meaning that we haven't gone through a very rapid kind of headcount increase in the last years. Yes, over the last years, we've step by step added a few people, but percent increase compared to a few years ago is only maybe 15-20% increase in the number of employees. What we've tried to do is to invest in technology, to invest in automation, and that level of automation and infrastructure we built to service the loan portfolio, to underwrite loans, to recover loans, and also to provide the investor support. The automation there allows us to be flexible and adapt to the specific business environment.
So I guess for a situation like now, it's really important because if you're relying on manual processes, if you've seen the restaurant industry or hospitality industry, they've been impacted the most. So yeah, I guess automation gives it a real advantage here.
Sure. I mean, to build more on that is, given we don't have any physical presence, we don't provide physical support, or we don't have any branches, our employees can work remotely, and they can work remotely and securely from homes. So you'll be seeing on social media in the coming days, pictures of our people working from their homes and the environment they're in.
And their dogs.
And their dogs and their kids. I mean, as everyone knows, at least in Estonia, schools have been stopped. Also, kindergartens, mostly are not, operating, which means that, people are at home with their kids, with their family. At the same time, they're able to still provide the day-to-day service to our customers, and also other elements like, coding the product, building new services, etc. So everything is operational. It has taken us, 1 to 2 weeks initially to properly set everything up, to get the teams operating remotely, because people can work at home, but I think the challenge for the first week was how to get teams to work together. So there's a lot of virtual stand-ups. Before, people were having stand-ups in the office, and if you had a question, you just stood up and asked someone. Now they have daily stand-ups with the teams, the process that they've set up to sort of have decent communication. All of that, it took a week or two to get in the flow, but broadly we see no negative effect on productivity.
Yeah, because I guess it's one thing being set up to work from home, but actually being as productive as you are in the office, working from home, especially if you have kids or everyone else at home, then it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it's a big thing to adapt to for everyone in all these industries. So yeah, really important. The next question is regarding Go and Grow. There's a few regarding Go and Grow actually. It's our most popular product, and investors wanted to know specifically, first of all, regarding the reserves. So we've said before that all returns that are generated over 6.75% go into a reserve, and Bondora has no claim on that reserve. It's for investors. So in a time like this, how is that relevant? What kind of size is the reserve? And maybe you could give some more information around that.
Sure. So Go and Grow was designed to provide a stable return when the times are good, as well as times of uncertainty like now. As a result, all the portfolio net returns above 6.75% are held back as a risk buffer. that risk buffer continues to accrue daily. To date, the level of reserves that have been collected since the inception of Go and Grow are already more than enough for all the returns paid out till today, and enough for the returns to be sort of accumulated for the next year. However, the underlying portfolio in Go and Grow continues to earn interest every single day, and all the returns of that portfolio above 6.75% every day go to the reserves. So we see that level of reserves continuing to grow. Now, of course, I think some people may have questions of how badly are the portfolios impacted, right? So on the reserve side is what's happening on the market. Right now, we see actually, because of the very, very strong government subsidies and government sort of intervention, various sorts of unemployment benefits that are being put into place, we've actually seen very little negative effects on the portfolio performance to date. The main sort of features that we built into the loan product and loan product servicing over the past few years are also there, automatically providing the borrowers ability to adjust to the new financial circumstances. So they can go online, they can go and open their account and either prolong the payment period, or reduce it if they see that they actually can pay off the sort of loan before, and therefore they can adjust the monthly payment to their current possibilities, and continue to service the loan.
So that means that even if governments, I think people are worried if governments implement some kind of rule, like an extended payment holiday for all consumer credit. But what you're saying is we have an option for borrowers to take that anyway with us, right? There's no need for some government intervention. They can take it within the product. It's always been there.
So, like I said, we've gone through 3 severe recessions already to date, and we've built into our product, into our servicing, number of features that are already there, have been there for many years, and that people can use. And therefore, in order on the servicing side, we have not had to make any special cases so far that are out of the ordinary.
Okay. Before we come on to the next Go and Grow question, I'll switch to something else. So there's been some bad press recently around other platforms. We won't talk about names. Whether they've been in financial difficulties or investors haven't been able to access their accounts, anything like that, or they've laid off loads of people. So what kind of distinguishes Bondora from these platforms that have maybe had a lot of difficulties and investors have kind of felt that pain themselves? How can investors trust Bondora, and how can they distinguish Bondora from those platforms?
Sure. I've been asked this question quite a lot by journalists as well. And first, we can't, group all the platforms as if, it's an industry and the industry is impacted in a similar way. There's a number of platforms on the market, and they each operate in a very different credit segment. So if we look at the let's say community or the sort of the space in Europe, then you have platforms where people are investing in equity-like sort of investments. There's platforms where people invest in real estate. There's places where people invest in SME loans, mortgages, etc. Each of those underlying assets are always affected differently. So there's no, one effect on the industry. Now, however, what is similar and what can be compared among sort of those different platforms is the track record and how long they've been in business. We've been operating for 12 years, and we've gone through a number of recessions already. Yet there is, many platforms that are very new, some of the platforms I've been asked about, that have run into financial difficulties, I've never actually heard until that question was posed. So there's a lot of platforms. I think, if after those questions I went through some of the forums online and see, probably 30, 40, 50 platforms, a lot of them are new. I'm not saying that all the new platforms are at higher risk or lower risk, but certainly not everyone has a track record to go, having gone through similar situations. Bondora, we've been operating for 12 years. We have very strong capitalization, and we've been profitable for the last 3 years. And the fundamental business model that I explained, whereby we're able to adapt to the business volume shifting up and down, and allowing us to sort of scale up costs when the times are sort of good, and scale down costs very fast when the times are more uncertain, like now, allows us to be profitable and continue to be profitable at even now. Yes, as I've said, our revenues don't grow that fast. The company, in terms of sort of business volume, doesn't grow that fast, and the level of profitability is going to be lower for sure. However, we're still going to be break even, and we're going to still continue to operate the business. We don't have to lay off any people. We haven't done so. We're not planning to do so. Actually, we're going to hire more people. There's many areas where we see that we will invest stronger as we sort of go through 2020.
Yeah, I know personally I've been pestering you myself about hiring for the product team, so that's good to hear. But I think it's a really important takeaway as well that despite P2P kind of being grouped as one thing, the underlying assets are totally different. Real estate, consumer loans, business loans, totally different things. So that's an important point. Another popular question from investors. So this is mainly for go and grow investors. Partial payouts, something that investors may have heard of lately. So maybe you can talk about them and give some specifics for someone who wants to know more about them.
Sure. So partial payouts is a feature we built into Go and Grow from day one. Partial payouts are triggered at times where the number of withdrawals from Go and Grow, aka people trying to sell the Go and Grow or part of the Go and Grow sort of account, is more than the cash flow being generated from the underlying portfolio. There are cash reserves within Go and Grow that are generated. However, if the withdrawal amount sort of increases fast, and the reserves are not the cash reserves, the liquidity from the portfolio is not enough, then a partial payout function is triggered. That is there to provide stability throughout the times, to make sure that Go and Grow is able to deliver the net return of up to 6.75%. What that means is that every day, 100,000 loans in the Go and Grow portfolio make payments. So there's continuously cash coming in from the loans. And that cash flow is then distributed among all of the investors who have a pending withdrawal. So the money that is being sort of accrued over a day is distributed from all the investors based on the amount that's available to pay out versus amount each investor has out of the total withdrawals. And everyone gets a same percentage or sort of equal share of the cash being generated and able to pay out.
Okay. So what you're saying is the cash reserve is different to the reserve fund we were talking about earlier, but if the return does not achieve over 6.75%. So they're two separate things, right?
Absolutely. So one is to distinguish sort of profitability and liquidity. So when we talk about profitability, the 6.75% Go and Grow return, profitability is generated through the income from the underlying portfolios. And when this income is above 6.75%, all of that excess sort of return is held back as a risk buffer. That part is continuing to grow every single day. As I mentioned, there's more reserves than the net returns of Go and Grow for a period of over a year. And that reserve level continues to grow every day. The second part is liquidity. And liquidity is effectively the cash flows coming in from the underlying portfolio. when there's a lot of withdrawals, then then the liquidity or the cash available is used up to pay out for these withdrawals. However, when the cash runs out, then every day new cash comes in. However, the portfolio return is not affected at all because the partial payout feature was created exactly to make sure that the net return remains stable. So instead of Go and Grow starting to liquidate loans on the secondary market with steep discounts to generate liquidity, there's a feature called partial payouts that is triggered automatically at these times. So therefore, each investor every day gets a fraction of their withdrawal request.
Okay.
So liquidity is there, the liquidity is slower, but liquidity continues to be there without having any negative effect on the returns. And that was something we specifically designed into
the beginning of the inception of Go and Grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So during this recent crisis, none of the product conditions or terms or features have been changed. It's been there from day one, anticipating a situation like this.
And I think that's important because it's not something that we've had to just develop for this situation now. And also for investors that the partial payouts haven't been triggered because of a damage to the return, right? It's purely just due to high withdrawals. The reason behind the withdrawals, I guess we could do a whole nother video on that, behind the motivations behind it. But one more thing on partial payouts. So some customers wanted to understand the main account. So if you've just been investing in Go and Grow, you might not have seen it before. So what is the main account and the function there of how it works?
Sure. So the partial payouts are made to the investors' Bondora main account every single banking day. So when you're withdrawing, let's say 1,000 euros, then every day, every banking day in the morning, you get a fraction of that withdrawal request being paid out to your main account. And main account is effectively an sort of account within Bondora that allows you to invest the money back into Go and Grow, invest with Portfolio Pro, Portfolio Manager, or withdraw the money. So it's a sort of a general main account that acts as a tool for investors to diversify within Bondora. The payments from Go and Grow are made there every single day, and the investors can withdraw money from the main account like they're able to put in a withdrawal request to Go and Grow. They have to log in, go to the withdraw section, and under the withdraw section, they see both Go and Grow and the main account. They click on the main account, enter the full amount on the main account, and withdraw it. And the payment is processed automatically to their bank account. So effectively, the flow during the times of partial payouts is that you generate a withdrawal request from Go and Grow. Every single day, part of the request is fulfilled and paid out to your main account. And from that main account, the investor can then withdraw immediately to the bank account. So if an investor says that, I made a withdrawal request and haven't received any money to my bank account, they should check their main account. And from there, they can make the withdrawal straight to their bank account, and it goes there through set by instant payments automatically and instantly.
Yeah, because I think the alternative of, smaller payments just coming directly to your bank account could be a bit confusing as well. So you would get the initial amount through there, and everything else would go straight to the main account, and then you can take it out that way. I think some investors have asked as well, and it's important to note that how long will this continue for? I guess it's impossible for us to say because it's totally dependent on investor behavior, essentially, and withdrawals and deposits received, right?
It is. I mean, we can't make a full prediction. I think what we can say is that from the withdrawals made out in the week before last, 45% of the withdrawal requests have been fulfilled. So there's a daily cash flow coming in as the underlying cash flow from the portfolio flows into Go and Grow.
Okay, so we've got around 5 minutes left. I'll try and cover the main points. So people have said that we are responding to their emails too slow. They're not happy about it. So why is that? Firstly, I agree that we're currently responding to emails too slow.
It is related to a very steep increase in the number of investors we've been able to recruit and join the platform over the last 6 months. As a result, we're building out the Bondora support team. Even right now, we're hiring people. Due to the coronavirus crisis, it's just a bit slower to hire people. That's sort of the main caveat that we've seen operationally, that in order to conduct interviews, it all needs to be remote. It's just much more lengthier process than we've seen in previous times. But we're continuing to build out the team.
Yeah, and because we head people from all over the place, right? It's not just local people from Estonia. So with no flights, it's basically impossible unless they have their own boat.
So we've hired people from all over the world, but right now, almost no one is let into Estonia. Very few people can leave their own country. Some people can't leave their sort of district. So it's a bit more complex to hire fast, but we are continuing to invest in this sort of area. And as I mentioned before, our desire for this year, where we continue to invest, is exactly there to investor relations in the overall support. Sort of the goal I'm working towards is 2 hour support, that everyone gets their question finally answered in 2 hours. And that is sort of the ultimate, the biggest goal that we have right now, that is going to have a direct impact on the service as well for everyone.
So 2 minutes left. 2 quick fire questions. What changes, if any, have you made to your investment portfolio outside of Bondora? Now I say outside of Bondora because obviously you're a bit biased with your Bondora portfolio, so there's probably no point to ask you about that. But outside of Bondora, what changes, if any?
So overall, I haven't done any changes. I continue to invest into Go and Grow. Unfortunately, my mandatory pension fund has taken a 30% hit in the last few months. However, even there I didn't make any changes. I'm fully I've kept stable because I believe that in many ways you need to stay on track. You need to stay on track because the fundamental investment principles that were valid 2 months ago are still valid. Yes, there's a lot of fluctuations in the market, but that doesn't make, very few places are fundamentally impacted. So, as long as you believed in the investment a few months ago, that it's a fundamental investment, it makes sense, it's a sustainable business, it has track record, then, unless you've invested in the tourism industry or Boeing, it may be impacted in some way. But I believe that the fundamentals for many businesses remain the same, and that's just the portfolio, and also in Go and Grow, I've stayed on track.
Okay, and last one, plans for Bondora in 2020.
Right now, as I said before, we continue to build the team. We continue investing in the product, and especially we want to substantially speed up the level of support. So the ultimate dream for us is that sort of instant responses to all customer queries. For that, we're hiring new people. We're investing in the technology. We're investing in the product. We're going to keep the organization strong. We're going to keep the team as we build it up, and we're going to continue investing in the product and the services. Okay. And before we go, is there any final thing that you would like to say to all our investors watching today? It was our first live Q&A. I've actually enjoyed it. We've never done this before, but although 30 minutes initially seemed like a lot of time, we only cover questions from a number of investors. But if any of your questions didn't make it through, you didn't get answers to some of these things, or you just like seeing us, then just give your feedback on our social media or live comments, and we'll be happy to do another session in a few weeks. Great. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Time. Goodbye.